Hey everybody, it's the Anime Trainer. Today we're going to be talking about morality in our new series, Everyday Morality. And today we have with us Beast Boy, as he likes to be called.
Stuff.
And we're going to talk about his moral beliefs. So why don't you just introduce yourself real quick? Tell us a little bit about who you are before we get into the mix of it, and we'll go from there.
All right. I go by Beast Boy. My real name's Kevin Prevo. I'm an MMA fighter, kind of like just a massive nerd who learned how to fight. I don't really consider like my morals or like my mental state really being higher or above everyone else. I just try to think of everything logically, ethically, like what makes sense in those ways. So I don't know. I feel like it's really important to take into account other people's perspectives, especially in like terms of morality and like what's right versus wrong type thing.
Sure. Honestly, I think in terms of like being a good person, most people don't enter into the realm of even thinking about those things. So I think you're ahead of the curve. Um, so yeah, let's go ahead and start with our first question. Do you even believe that there is such thing as right and wrong?
I feel like everything is relative, much like with like space and time. Like everything is really relative to the individual's experience and observation.
Okay.
So like right and wrong would be like, based on my standards and what I think to be on the good side of the spectrum. Does this fall under good? Does this fall under bad, like or a negative thing? Like
Okay.
that, I feel like that's what right or wrong really is.
Now, where do we draw those uh, when we say good or bad or positive or negative? What do those things mean?
I think positive would be like, is this beneficial to my ambitions?
Okay.
Is this going to help me in achieving what I see to be as a perfect world? And like negative would be like, is this going to take away from that vision? Does this like hinder me or hinder or infringe
Okay.
upon my beliefs, that type of thing?
Does whatever I'm um, talking about um, benefit or benefit me or not,
Yeah,
or harm me in some way? So it's very specific to the individual person, is what you're saying.
yeah.
Okay. Um, so does that give you the ability to make judgments on other people? Is that possible?
I feel like when you make any type of judgment, when one makes a judgment on another, the other person may or may not like that's where those two moralities collide, and that's where
Yeah.
we come we have to come to a compromise and understanding. And I think that's like how societies are eventually built and stuff. But
Sure. Sure.
just I don't really know how I think about like judgment of other people. I think like most people try to be non-judgmental, but at the same time you have to be, because what if that person is bringing negativity into your space? So
Okay.
I feel like judgment is a tool, I think, not really like something people need to really cling to or absolutely stay.
What do you mean when you say it's a tool?
Like judgment, your sense of like what is good or bad is really what helps you navigate through.
Okay.
So like you come across a path, you have a choice, do I accept this into my life and allow it to stay and affect me for better or worse? Or is my better judgment telling me maybe I should step away from this thing and move on to maybe something else, see what else can be brought into my life, or who else maybe.
Okay. So I'm going to venture to say you don't think that there is a such thing as objective morality, something that is a standard to which we can look to as moral beings.
No, I don't think.
Okay. Well, let's delve into some specific things.
Okay.
Is it wrong to harm other people?
Not necessarily. I feel like context really is everything.
Sure. Okay, but we have to start with one thing and then we'll add.
Yeah, like is it
Baseline, you
inherently
don't know
wrong
this
to
person. Like,
is it inherently wrong to harm another person? I would say no.
okay,
I feel like it can be wrong, but the action itself does not automatically make it.
okay, all right. So let's delve in a little bit more. What would make it wrong?
If you're harming a person who is harming no one else, is no threat to no one else, is not offending anyone, I
Okay.
feel like, they're at peace, everything is kind of tranquil in the area, and you inflict harm upon them, inconvenience them,
Mm-hmm.
damage them, that would be wrong. There's no reason,
Okay.
no implication that says that it's necessary.
Okay. Let's delve into that. What do you mean necessary? What would make it
Well,
necessary?
I feel it would be necessary to harm someone if they are inflicting harm on others. Say
Okay.
you sneak up on a guy who's robbing a store. He's
Uh huh.
inflicting harm on the cashier. He's
Uh
inflicting harm
huh.
on the business. So you hit him over the head with whatever you have on you, maybe your
But
phone or
why is that
something.
wrong? Why is it wrong for him to rob the store?
Well, at that point, it would be more so law than I think morality. We know
Okay.
that it's illegal to do that.
Okay, yeah, but we're not talking about legality right now. We're talking about what's right and wrong. So we can talk about law here in a little bit, but let's delve into because you were trying to define that it would be, uh, you know, morally wrong to harm someone who had not been doing anything, but it would be morally okay to harm someone who was basically harming someone else. There seems to be something there that harming someone seems to be an inherent value that
Like,
you have as something that needs to be not done. Harming is bad.
yeah,
Do you think that's true?
I could say that, yeah.
Okay, why do you think harming people is bad?
Well, harm by definition would be to cause damage to or to neglect some aspect of. And I think just by definition, like morally speaking, if you're harming something, you're bringing it down. And
Okay.
like, I feel like
What do you mean bringing it down?
making it less than, top shape, like top condition, you may be like, harming a person's feelings, like making them feel less of themselves. You might
Okay.
maybe harming someone's body where you're making them bruise and bleed.
Okay.
Like I just again, it's all a matter of perspective, but I can't personally see where, causing harm to another person
Sure.
can be seen as positive.
Okay. Um so let's back up just a little bit. Um so it all being a matter of perspective, uh can you really make a claim that something is right or wrong? Um, like for instance, the guy robbing the store. Can you claim that that is a wrong action, and therefore you would need to stop it based on some internal moral compass?
I think at that point, my moral compass becomes what I can see. And like if I'm seeing things that I associate with negativity, if I'm seeing a look
Uh
of
huh.
fear, if I'm seeing, a person in pain, like that is the red flag I think that instigates this is a negative action taking place. And
But
then I would
why do you care?
that's a good point. I think generally I feel like caring, whereas harming one would be like one of those things that I find easier to associate with something negative. I think caring is something that's easier to associate with something positive.
Sure.
You're able to more, I guess, empathize with other beings, other situations, and
Okay.
imagine would I enjoy being, the one on the receiving end of this experience.
Gotcha. Okay. All right. So you're putting yourself in that person's shoes.
Yeah.
Okay. Um, why is that important?
I think that when you're able to put yourself in someone's shoe, you're able to be a little more selfless and think, how might, how might someone else be feeling? And then you get to think, the other question after that, how would I feel?
Okay.
You know, so it comes in levels. It's think, what is happening? Who is this happening to?
Okay.
How would I feel if it was happening to me? Do I step in?
Okay. All right. Cool. Why, at any point, would you actually step in? And what is the benefit to you? Because we've already established that you think that it's all very situational, and that from person to person, it really is about whether or not it benefits me or harms me in some fashion. How does it benefit you to put yourself into danger to prevent someone else's harm?
That I think that's where human nature comes in. I feel like it's all a matter of selfish satisfaction. Like, I would feel better if this bad thing wasn't happening.
Why?
And so, like, I think it's when you see something that you want, naturally you go get it. When you see something you don't want, naturally you try to avoid it. But for some reason, when something bad is happening to someone else, um, that's where it becomes more of, how badly do I want to avoid this? And then it's like, it's so bad, this other person shouldn't have to experience it either. My empathy is telling me that, you know, like, if my brain says that I have a chance to solve this issue and I go for it, and there's really no reward for it for me, I think the only, like, benefit to the one, like, stopping the problem would be just self-satisfaction. Like, this thing is no
Okay.
longer an issue because I did this, I solved it.
Okay. Now let's assume a different situation. You in the process of saving someone else will die. What do you do?
I feel like that becomes, how much do I value my life? How much do I value other lives? And sometimes you don't have time to think about it, but ideally, I
Sure.
guess one may think,
That's why we do this work now, so we don't have to think about it then.
it's, if you die, it's over. You only get the
Yeah.
one life. It's not like you can
Yep.
respawn. So it really would be, would I be satisfied ending it here
Mm-hmm.
for the sake of this other person who would get to live on and continue? Like, would I be fine with my story ending here while this other person will get to turn the page?
Okay.
And I think if the answer is yes, I'd be okay with the story ending here, then, self-sacrifice all the way. I feel like,
What would make that okay?
mm, I can't think of too many situations where I would say, like, it would be a good idea.
Okay.
I think for the most part, self-sacrifice. I'm a being about self-preservation, so self-sacrifice really is
Sure.
like that number. Like, my life, losing it is the number one thing I'm trying not to do.
Sure.
So for me to want to give that up, I feel like the life that I'm saving has to be equally as important.
Ah. Okay. All right. All right. Interesting. Equally as important to what? What does that matter? You ain't gonna be here no more. You done.
True. My current belief, like in my last thought, my life, my my personal life value, if I've decided to sacrifice myself, is, it's officially zero. I no longer value my life. I'm giving it up for this other person.
Okay.
So I feel like in that moment is where you have to decide that my life is no, this life is the one that matters most at right now.
Sure.
And because there won't be anything for you after that, right now, I guess that really is like, the trade-off, I suppose, because this other person, they absolutely do not want to die. That's
Yeah.
why you're saving.
Yeah.
So I guess in that moment, you're giving them your life in a
So
way.
what makes that decision for you? What makes your life no longer valuable except for maybe that you're super depressed and you want to die?
Um, what can I bring into this world? What left can I accomplish in this world? What left, like, what other, have I satisfied myself enough?
Okay. So it's
Is
about
there,
self-satisfaction.
I feel like that's all life is. You're just
Okay.
a bunch of electrical currents satisfying impulses.
Okay. Um Interesting. Okay. So let's talk about let's kind of shift gears a little bit because we were obviously talking about like heavier type things. Let's talk about something a little more, you know, chill. Um, just like simple, like being kind to someone else. Um, is that something that we should do, or does it matter at all? Is it something that you just oh that's if you want to?
I feel like being kind to others, like on paper, black and white, should we be kind to others? I feel isn't necessarily, I don't feel like it's a necessity necessarily, like to
Sure.
go out of your way to, brighten other people's days and really like bring smiles into the world. It's not like a requirement, I don't think.
Okay. Um, do you do it?
I try to. I try not to inconvenience myself along the way, but I'm really bad at that. I feel like,
Okay.
on a personal level, like the desire to bring other people happiness is really strong. So
Where do you think that comes from?
the massive amount of depression I endured in my life.
Okay. Now let me ask you, what is your goal in attempting to bring other people happiness? Um, is it more like I'm doing it so that other people don't have to feel sad, or you're doing it because on some level it makes you feel good?
It's a little bit of both. I think
Okay.
like on the base level, I think about what I endured and the way I felt, and I think to myself, no one should feel that way. And then I also go, my brain takes everything more than one step at a time. My head, I go, from I hated this feeling to it feels good to bring other people that feeling because it's like,
Mm-hmm.
I mean, that really is just self gratification at that point. It's, I personally enjoy watching other people smile, and it makes
Okay.
me happy as well.
Okay. So it sort of seems like we're going down a route of um, maximizing pleasure and minimizing pain. Okay.
Yeah, that
You, does that sound
sounds about right.
okay? Now, so let's dig into that a little bit. Um, there's obviously lots of different types of pleasure and lots of different types of pain. Um, what about because like you could just sit around and eat really good food, hang out with, people that you find enjoyable, watch Netflix all day long, do the things that like that touch all the comfort buttons. Um, and that would be a lot of pleasure and you would typically avoid a great deal of pain in doing those things in the moment. Um, do you feel like that there's anything higher than that? What would you say is uh, the maximum amount of pleasure in life?
Well, I feel like because there are so many different types of pleasure,
Sure.
to answer that, I feel a person would have to think not what, how do I word it? So holding hands with someone that you find enjoyable to be around, you enjoy spending your time with.
Mm.
that can be seen as a type of very small pleasure. It's a simple thing that, like the little things people do. And then you would take uh bedtime wrestling to be like the maximum version of that physical pleasure, that
Sure.
type of intimacy
Sure.
on.
Okay.
And I'm sure in some people's books that is like the best you're gonna get, like that's the top tier happiness. But I think pleasure, the highest pleasure would really be, I think, just quiet, tranquil happiness, like where you're not thinking about the thing that is making you pleasurable, you're just feeling that way.
Just feeling contentment.
Yeah.
Okay. Um, let's see here. So, no matter what was occurring in your life, feeling happy, not being externally dependent upon
Yeah,
things to feel that way.
that's what I think is the
Okay.
maximum.
Okay. So, if you could, let's posit a situation here. If you could, through meditation, let's just say meditation, achieve a state of constant, you know, pretty decent, tranquil happiness, contentment, um, would you only do that?
No,
Why not?
in order to value the good things, you have to also experience the bad things. You have to have a scale to hold these standards to.
Okay.
And I feel like the whole point of life is to experience those things and to know what, these are the things that I dislike. These are the things I really like. These are the things I couldn't care less about.
Okay. So there seems to be something more than just achieving happiness.
I feel like experiencing the universe as a whole, like
Why
just,
is that important?
I feel like because we're all a part of it and we're all one, we're all itty bitty pieces of it, but at the same time, we're all the same big thing. So
Okay.
just since we have such a finite amount of time to exist, we should exist in the presence of as many new things as we can.
Okay. Would you say if somebody is not doing that, that they are somehow failing in their you know their speed run of humanity?
I wouldn't say they're failing. I feel like failure in life ultimately is just dying, like getting killed, not necessarily dying, just getting killed. That's failure in life.
He likes to be up here while things are going on. Hi, hi, Keely. Are you gonna?
You just hopping up.
Yeah, he sees that I'm doing things, so he wants to be involved.
That's awesome.
There he goes. You want to be on camera? Okay. All right. So okay, some interesting thoughts here. Um, I kind of lost where we were just because of cat, but so part of this big thing, experiencing it, the failing would be getting killed.
Yeah.
Okay, all right. There's something there. There's something there. You said that failing would be getting killed. Failing, we used a lot of words like failing means that there's a standard. Should means that there's some sort of like moral obligation held on that statement. You can't actually say should, ought, better, worse, unless there's some sort of the standard that you're comparing it to. And it can be completely arbitrary from person to person, whatever standard that you're applying to, which is part of why we are going into this conversation about people's individual moral beliefs, because it's trying to establish what that standard is. Because on some level, you believe, based on what I'm hearing, that there is some set or some value that that can be applied for the rightness or wrongness of actions, at least in terms of yourself, right?
I could agree with that statement.
So let's figure out what that is. Um, so let's start with you. Um, why is getting killed failing?
Um, well, number one, I'm a martial artist. I was raised on fighting, on winning fights,
Mm-hmm.
and that true defeat is death.
Okay.
Like if you lose a fight, you get punched out, knocked out. You can get back up, get trained, get better, come back and win another day. And I try to apply that logic with everything. I'm still alive. I lived through this experience, good or bad. I survived it. I'm going to move on. I'm going to improve myself in whatever area that came to my shortcoming, that led to my shortcoming, and I'm going to improve and become better and move on. I've gained experience. If I'm killed, I no longer gain experience. I don't get another chance to come back and improve. Whatever led to my shortcoming there, kaput.
Okay. So death is the end of the road, and it means that you can no longer experience life.
Yeah.
Okay. So why for you is experiencing life or life itself valuable?
Um, Instinct. I think. There may be some other like underlying subconscious idea, but I feel like as a sentient creature who is aware of being alive and is able to, of my own free will for the most part, do what I want with my body, I feel continuing that baseline of existence is my top priority because I can't experience these other like things like good or bad. I can't experience any of it if I don't have my baseline.
Okay.
It's much like how you can't go to the top floor of a tower if there's no first floor. The whole thing's going to come tumbling down.
Okay. So we all have weird, like, you talk about instinct and impulses and because you talked about electrical impulses and whatnot at some point. We've all had like intrusive thoughts, like weird thoughts where you're just like, I can't sit in an auditorium and watch somebody speak in front of me without standing up and thinking about standing up and punching the guy in the face. Can't do it. I don't know why. I have no problem with whoever's talking. It's just something that runs through my head.
He's like, maybe I should just deck him one time.
Yeah, just like I just wonder what would
I
happen.
get that.
um, why don't we do that? Why don't you follow those impulses?
I feel
That's
like if
something that it's an
humans,
experience, right? Like that's a hell of an experience.
I feel like if humans followed every impulse that came to mind or that came to be, we may not have the society that we have today. I don't feel like, these massive structures would have been built or these
Okay,
governments would have been able to be formed because it takes organized, disciplined thought to come up with
sure.
anything with, I,
Cooperation
I
between
think.
individuals to be able to do things.
Yeah,
But why does that
and
matter?
I don't really think it does. I think it's just the way we do things.
Okay, so if a guy gets it in his mind that he wants to you know blow the planet up because why not? To quote a character that I can't remember their name now. It was like an alternate universe Batman. He was trying to blow up the universe essentially, and they asked him, "Well, why are you doing that?" And he's like, "It's the only thing that matters. It's the only thing that actually matters because it actually ends everything. Because there is no meaning to anything. So this is the only thing that actually matters."
I feel
Um,
like
I'm sorry, say again.
that kind of impulse sounds a little crazy.
It might be crazy, but it's still his impulse. Um, and how do we even like deign to call it crazy?
I
Like,
feel like that is a very high and mighty claim for one to make. Oh, that thought is crazy. You shouldn't do that. But
but
I feel
destroying the
like
whole universe, like the whole thing,
the
the
whole thing,
boundless, ever
like
expanding.
that one thing that like everything exists inside of, like you want to destroy it. feel like
Yeah. But if there's no, you know, sense of human morality, um, and it's just whatever one person believes versus whatever another person believes, you really can't make a claim that that's crazy or bad or anything else at all.
technically no, you really can't. And I think
But do you?
I personally do.
Why?
Absolutely. I feel it's reckless and childish to kind of go on those impulses. If you look at a baby or a toddler or even just, a young kid 4 or 5 years old, like they haven't learned to suppress impulse yet. So that's why you often see kids like they'll be playing with their toys one moment and then they'll think something or see something or hear something and be off doing God knows what else.
Mm-hmm.
And that's just impulse. They suddenly felt the urge that they had this desire to go and do this other thing.
Sure.
And
Because
it's
they don't
as
know
we
any
get
better.
older, and even to say that, like, don't know better, it's just they just haven't learned not to do the first thing they think of because it may not
But
be
why
good
does
or
that
bad.
matter?
Humans are not the smartest things around, and learning that
We're pretty dang smart.
we're pretty dang
If you
smart, but we're also
compare it to
pretty dang
every,
stupid.
if you compare it to everybody, I didn't say. Listen, I didn't say it was like a big gap.
So
But
even
like
if we
we're
are the
winning.
smartest, it's because we don't have the competition. But humans are pretty dumb, and we don't have the best ideas the first time around all the time.
Okay. What does that
So
mean when you say best idea? Best.
in terms of
According to what?
efficiency, in terms of efficiency, what is able to bring me the largest results in the least amount of effort.
Okay.
And
So continue.
I believe when thinking of better ideas, or even just having a first bad idea, like an idea that may not work out in your favor, like it may not bring you any positive joy. I mean, that's why kids, they see the reflection in the face of a hot oven and they go and give themselves a kiss like they would on a mirror, and then
Sure.
they burn themselves. It's because they reacted on their first impulse, not knowing the
Okay.
consequences of their action.
Now, what happens when you react on that impulse and something bad happens?
Generally, one would learn
Okay.
and gain knowledge through that experience.
And what do you
Is
do with that knowledge?
use it to, if something bad happened, I would say hold on to that knowledge to avoid the same problem in the future
Hmm. So
or a similar problem.
you're collecting uh, information, experiences about the world around you in order to do what with it?
Just coexist with the rest of the universe.
Okay. Little closer to home. We're learning this to do what? I'm gaining experiences to not touch the hot oven and to that when I eat food that I stay alive. Like I'm gaining those experiences for what?
Um, I believe it's just self-preservation and longevity. Just
Okay.
I don't want these bad things to happen. I'll use the knowledge I've learned to exist for as much time as possible.
Okay. So is it just existing or is it existing in a certain state?
For me personally, it's just existing, but I think most people have their own standard. They want to exist on whatever self-gratifying level that they think of. I want to die rich. I want to gain as much money as possible. I want to gain as much fame as possible. I just want to have as many things as possible.
Sure. They have those goals, but what the goals are not goals in and of themselves. They're goals to an end for the most part. Um, what's that end?
I feel like the end, I don't know. Never thought about that before. I think one end, you have before death. All goals are really just achievements to make before this deadline of my life.
Mm-hmm.
But it could be for a reason. I want to achieve this goal to, gratify this idea. Like I want to travel this road to get to this city. There's a reason, there's motivation behind each ambition.
Okay.
And I think that is extremely subjective, like each personal experience.
Okay. So it's each individual person trying to maximize something. And we talked a little bit about pleasure and pain earlier. Do you think that the maximization of pleasure and the minimization of pain is a is a baseline human drive? Because a lot of
I
people do really, really, really stupid things on a regular basis that very negatively impact themselves. Um, and some people seem to like be really addicted to sadness.
Yeah, I feel like on some level, yes. I feel like on some level, base human nature is maximize pleasure, minimize pain. And I
Okay.
feel like that ideology, that standard is sometimes skewed by life experiences, and it's harder to differentiate what is good and what is bad for an individual. And on occasion, it may even, throw off what they think they want for themselves versus, how they achieve what they want.
So they could be
Because,
mistaken.
yes,
Interesting.
humans are very good at making mistakes.
So no, but this is interesting because I can want something, and that's and I or value something or make a decision, but I can be wrong. Wherein does wrongness play into that? Because like it's my decision. How can it be wrong? I am
I,
the measure of all things.
I feel like as humans, we have this very, like, it's kind of a talent, really, where we do things because it seemed like it was great and then suffer because of it. And
Okay.
I think, for example, like a person who thinks that telling their friend that they're going to kill themselves if they walk out of their life,
Sure.
and they're spreading this negative feeling, this really unpleasurable sensation that they're spreading between their friends, maybe a significant other, their groups, whatever, because it's what they're feeling. And humans don't like to be alone. We're social creatures.
Okay.
So in that feeling where you feel so dark and so low and so alone, it makes you feel better in a way that other people feel that way too.
Okay. But you think that doing that is wrong.
Yes. Like in the
Okay.
sense that it doesn't truly gratify the desire, pleasure.
Gotcha. So so basically, the thing that you are doing is not the most effective way to acquire or the most efficient way to acquire pleasure, and you're quote selling yourself short.
Got it.
Gotcha. So when someone is making a poor decision or a wrong decision, it is correct me if I'm wrong. They are doing so because they are making a decision that is not creating the level of happiness that is that they the that they could be creating.
In a way, I think it's that a person may not have found the most efficient way to achieve their ambition. And because they may not know of a better method, they may feel that the one that they're using is the best one, even though like it's really two steps behind where they could be. So they may not inherently be trying to sell themselves short,
Sure.
but their
And
lack
I
of
don't
experience
very
and
few
knowledge
I
may,
think very few people would choose to sell themselves short. They're you know what I mean? I'm sure that there are some people who would because there's a lot of different types of people out there. Um, but if go on.
I think a big part of like knowing what level of gratification you could be getting versus the level of gratification that you are getting is a
Okay.
very important gauge to have.
Okay, I'm starting to see some pieces coming together here. So the accumulation of experiences in life will allow you to be able to build a a framework for being able to decide whether or not something is good as far as your own maximum, maximizing of pleasure, or bad as far as your own minimizing of pain, kind of thing goes. And you'll through those additional experiences, you'll be able to make better decisions for yourself, right?
Yeah.
Okay. Um, okay. So, how does that play into human human interaction?
I think a big part of human interaction, at least a big part of most people, I shouldn't say that. A big part of what I've observed to be most people's goals when in like interacting with other people is to find other people who either benefit them in their way of thinking and their way of life, or share a similar perspective on the way life should be lived.
Okay. So, how does the this principle of maximizing pleasure, minimizing pain, creating that framework to be able to make decisions that do those certain things. How does that play into human interaction?
Um, well, it helps you. I feel it helps guide one from in interacting with the wrong humans in the sense that you won't. Okay, take high schoolers. This is a perfect example.
Okay.
You know, the new kid at a high school, when they walk into the cafeteria, they're gonna look for a group that seems very similar to an environment they would enjoy being. They won't walk over like the kid who comes in and all they know is sports, Call of Duty, and basketball, like playing basketball, playing 2K, playing Call of Duty. What celebrities are doing what rappers are dropping the hottest albums. They're not gonna go and sit at the table full of like girls reading magazines and doing makeup.
Okay.
And that's because like in their head it's not going to gratify what they seem to be like a good time. It's not going to bring them the pleasure that they would find, sitting at a table full of people with like 2.0 KDs in Call of Duty in like, they can drop whatever many points in a game on the court. They want to hang out with like-minded humans so that they
Sure.
can expand their knowledge of their interest.
Okay. Um, yeah, that's one thing in our associations. Uh, do you think that this maximizing pleasure, minimizing pain, and the whole framework involved with it, does that um, have any bearing on how we treat each other?
Absolutely. Absolutely. Some people get pleasure from inflicting pain.
Okay. Is that wrong?
And is that wrong?
Is that a case of you're mistaken? There's something higher. Don't do that.
I'm not sure how to answer that. I don't want to say that it's inherently wrong because I believe that it's wrong personally. I think that
Sure, but
some
you believe it's
people
wrong for a reason, and so that's what we're trying, that's what we're trying to
I
figure
think
out.
it's interesting because I think people like that can still be like I don't want to say like good people, but they can still be like personable. You can still, have human conversation with them and they still
Sure.
function like us. I think that those people
Sure, and
who
I
enjoy
think there's probably you have to make a distinction between someone who's a sadist, um, in a sense of like functioning like in society and only meeting with people consensually who are also masochists, sort of things, and somebody who's like, oh, I don't know, a serial killer.
right.
Um, so let's make that distinction.
I think in inflicting pain in the name of pleasure is in is situationally wrong. I think people
Okay,
like
and I think
pe-
that's given based on 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 your belief, but we need to determine what makes that situationally wrong. Because just to say it again doesn't give us any new information.
I think punching random people down the street. I think that's wrong.
Okay.
Just because just because I enjoy fighting and I enjoy punching people, that does not justify or excuse the action of punching people who did not consent to get punched.
Yeah, okay. All right. That's cool. But why? You
I
really
think
like
that
it, dude.
is
Dude, you like it a lot. Like
I
punching,
do.
there ain't like feeling your knuckles on somebody's face or like in the especially the rib cage, man. Like
Right,
knuckles
you
in the
like
rib
feel
cage.
everything like grind up and
Oh yeah.
crunch
Oh yeah. That's good stuff. It's like, why not? You like it.
because I feel the only actually now that I think about it, this may be like the only thing I feel should be seen as like a concrete like this is wrong would be enforcing your scale of right and wrong onto other people, your scale of
Okay.
good and bad.
Okay.
I feel like the only concrete rule should be everyone has their own like perspective. Keep it that way. Don't try to force that.
Okay. So, no, I'm sure you know what's coming. Why? Why does it matter if whether or not I um, you know put other people subject to my understanding of right and wrong or my beliefs or anything else if there's actually not anything that we can say is
I feel
really
like
moral.
that is because we cannot say like your individual perspective of what morality is. You can't morally justify
Ooh.
forcing those things on other people.
Nope, can't do it. You just
You
you
literally can't.
Nope, unfortunately you just tried to use morality and moral principles as a means to say that there's no such thing as moral principles.
That's the paradox though.
Well, unfortunately, paradoxes are not logical.
That's fair, I suppose.
And if we're trying to be reasonable and try to find uh, ways to function in the world ethically as people, we have to determine what is the standard of our own action. And and I'm not saying that your standard is wrong. I think that you just haven't dug enough to get to what you actually think is the standard. Because I think you think there's a standard.
I feel like there could be. I if there is, I wouldn't know what it is. And I
Okay.
think that's what this a big part of this is about is finding out.
If so far, if I had to put a pin in it, I think there's digging in the happiness, maximizing happiness, minimizing pleasure thing is probably the most, I guess, useful thing for us to focus on. Um, I don't know if you're familiar with utilitarianism.
No, I don't believe I am.
Okay, so there's it's longer than this, but like everybody's really like if you say utilitarianism, they think John Stuart Mill. And but it was before that, and even before that, like back in ancient Greece, there were guys that were like pleasure good, pain bad, maximize pleasure, minimize pain, and then they went through the whole conversations about like, well, if I was to live like a pig with just my base pleasures and maximized, is that profitable? Would I want to do that? And most people were like, no, I'd much rather be a human even if I'm not completely fully satisfied. And so there's these gauges of like, okay, well, some pleasures are better than others, and that sort of thing. So this is a conversation that's been happening for a long, long time, like 2,500 years. So it's not anything new. Um, so with utilitarianism, it takes that concept of gauges of pleasure and pain, and it makes it concerned with happiness. So like what you were talking about previously with like this concept of joy and this contentment and whatnot. But it's not a base level like, oh, I'm just I feel good in a moment and then it's gone. It's stronger than that. It's a stronger sense of what happy means, if that makes any
Yeah.
sense. So I feel like we're moving in the direction of sort of like a utilitarian understanding of what morality would be. Um, so let's dig a little deeper with pain and pleasure. So with happiness, we'll just call it happiness from now on. Are you good with that?
All right.
Okay. Or would you prefer pain and pleasure?
I feel like happiness is like a good title to stamp on that.
Okay. So uh, in terms of maximizing happiness, um, does that only concern your own happiness, or does it also concern other people's happiness? And if so, why?
I feel that it does only concern my happiness, and the illusion that it concerns other people's comes from like a personal value of other people.
Okay, so
So,
what they mean to you as
like
what?
as far as how highly do I think of this other person's happiness, in a sense that their lack of happiness would negatively affect me.
Okay, gotcha. So it's a very self-interested sort of I'm maximizing happiness or maximizing my own goals, um, and I'm maximizing other people's happiness and goals insofar as they affect me.
Yeah,
Okay, so would that mean that it's okay to cause pain if you knew for a fact that it maximizes your own happiness and minimizes and wouldn't you wouldn't like, go to jail for it
feel
or
bad.
something. Or even you wouldn't even feel bad about it.
I think I can't say that that would be morally wrong. I don't think. Like if it's legal and you're maximizing your own happiness, I think
But they
that
don't want that pain. They don't like that.
they don't want that pain. They don't like that. But at that point, that okay. I think that on my moral scale, yes, those actions would be seen as wrong.
Okay, on
But
your
I wouldn't be
so
able to
that
tell them that.
okay, interesting. Interesting. You wouldn't be able to tell them that. Um Why not? Why wouldn't you be able to tell them that?
Um,
They don't got to listen to you.
I feel like that goes back to my thought that it's not okay to like push your beliefs of right and wrong on other people.
Mm-hmm.
Like I feel like if I were observing in a dystopian world where no laws exist and it's just survival of the fittest, do what you want. If I'm seeing someone enjoy like joyfully inflicting pain on others, then stepping in to prevent that would be self gratification. The same way that them inflicting pain is self gratification. We, in a way, are acting on the same impulses. I'm
Okay.
doing this because I feel like I want to.
Okay. And you want to because it's going to.
I want to because it increases my pleasure and I can.
Okay. So I want to talk about your whole concept because I think you have a pretty good understanding, at least of yourself, of like what uh, maximizes your own happiness, minimizes your. I mean, obviously, as we've established, we can sometimes be wrong about that because we don't have enough experiences to be able to make you know, a good decision about what we could be wrong. But then we
Yeah.
learn and we're like, okay, well, this is actually a better thing for me, so I'm going to do that. Um, but I think I don't. I'm getting a like a logical problem when you say that you don't feel like you can say something to someone else because I've watched you do that. I've watched you say that's bad. Don't do that.
Well, at that point, there's a difference between like forcing your beliefs on other people versus trying to convince other people of your beliefs.
Okay. So you can tell them.
You can try to convince other people to like change their mind
Mm-hmm.
and maybe share your perspective so that maybe they may alter theirs.
Okay.
But you know like me telling a person, yo, this is pretty bad, we shouldn't do this, is different from being like, no, this is wrong, throw it out. Because when you use a word like should or your um shouldn't, it tells people, well, then there is a better thing that could be done.
Yeah.
There's a
Absolutely.
higher level of action to take,
Yeah.
and that can make people want to listen.
But you yourself are appealing to when you say should and shouldn't. You yourself seem to be appealing to this concept of maximizing happiness or maximizing pleasure. Is that correct?
Yeah.
So when you say you shouldn't do that, what you seem to be telling someone else is that uh, if you want to be happy, if you want to find the higher level of happiness than what you're currently trying to get, you shouldn't do that. You should do something different because you think that obviously through your experience that you found a higher road, so to speak. It's not just a pig wallowing in the mud. It's a guy, you know, striving to build a business and or be world champ, or it's striving for something higher, and somehow that's better than the baseline of I really want to punch this guy.
I think, yeah, for the most part, I mean, that's pretty like spot on. I think that a lot of the time when we think about, good versus bad, pain versus pleasure, happiness versus sadness, we think that the other is automatically a bad thing, and that the things get kind of mixed up because of that illusion. And I think, I mean, even I'm guilty of it. Sometimes we forget that, without pain, we wouldn't know pleasure. Without sadness, we wouldn't know happiness.
Sure,
If every pork chop were perfect, we wouldn't have hot dogs.
sure. So there's this. I appreciate that. There's this understanding among human beings that um, there are certain immediate pleasures that lead to greater pain in the long run. And then there are certain immediate pains that lead to greater pleasures in the long run.
Yeah.
Like working out is sometimes very difficult. Training is very difficult, but there are health benefits and ways to be able to you can train to be able to save your own life, or you can train to play a sport that you enjoy, um, and that was all born of you know these long grueling sessions in the gym for maybe just like 10 seconds of the crowd applauding you. But at no point are you ever going to go, those 10 seconds were not worth, all
Yeah.
all the pain that I endured was worth this.
Yeah. Um, in the same vein, you could have like, I'm gonna eat this pizza right now because it tastes good.
Yeah.
And then like there go your gains. I'm gonna continually eat pizza, drink Coca-Cola, you know, eat these candy bars while I'm gaming and skipping the gym right before this big contest because these are things I enjoy. And then I'm gonna go and lose
Mhm.
and be really sad and depressed
Gotcha.
that I got embarrassed in the big competition because I was gratifying these immediate pleasures, not thinking about the long term like emotional pain of losing in front of however many
Yeah.
people.
So those actions are short-sighted. Um, Even though they would, in the immediate, they make me happy. Um, but through experience, we learn that not all happy is the same kind of happy.
Yeah,
Okay. Um, so uh, we just talked about this a little bit ago. When telling someone else you should or shouldn't do that, are you appealing to that concept of uh, don't be short-sighted?
yes, I think so in many ways. When you're telling someone you shouldn't do this, it could be just because like you shouldn't do this because based on what I've learned, the result is less than what you're aiming for. Or on the other hand, it could just be you shouldn't do this. And I've noticed that parents are extremely good at this. You shouldn't do this because while it may bring you pleasure and you may feel that you're enjoying your life, you shouldn't do this because I don't like
Okay.
it.
I think those are different things, though.
I think I mean I said parents, maybe that wasn't really the best example, but I was saying like that's a thing that occurs often. You know,
Sure. Like, so you have people that say, I don't like when gay people get married, so therefore they shouldn't.
yeah, that kind of thing. And
Okay.
mm, rough.
Sure. Um, and obviously they may have a different base value for what they think morality is than what you do. Um, but when you tell somebody they should or shouldn't do something, are we appealing to the framework that you've built over time that says
Yeah.
this is this is this is good for your happiness, this is not good for your happiness?
Yeah, I think that's like the appeal there.
Okay. And so is that um, prescription for someone else's actions, that they should or shouldn't do something? How does that play into your own happiness?
I feel happier personally. Like I don't want to say that my moral compass is like the right one, but I do think that a big
What's the only
part
one you
of
know?
it's the only one I know.
Yeah.
So when I'm sharing that, my experiences and perspective and knowledge, I try to think of it like as leaving a stamp in a world that will live far longer than me.
Okay.
And that goes back to like the self-preservation thing.
Okay. Interesting. So it's leaving a legacy of some sort.
Yeah.
Okay. And so interesting. Okay. So does it make you happy to think about leaving a legacy, or is it more I want to live forever?
The latter. It's more like
Interesting.
I think that as humans, a lot of the time, like we have people who like we know that we die soon. We don't have like the longest lifespans, not even like of creatures on the planet. So we try to get as much gratification as we can in a short amount of time. Or there is, the knowledge that we don't live for very long that inspires us to strive to live longer and to exist for longer.
Sure. And I
So
think that's
I
why
think,
some people have children for that reason. Um, okay. So that concept has actually dipped into possibly a deeper um, value than even happiness, because that seems to undercut uh, your happiness. It might, unless the whole thought of you living forever brings you such an immense feeling of satisfaction that it increases the intensity of your satisfaction right now, and that's what's important.
I feel that doesn't really describe it. So there
Okay, so there's
may
something
be
else then.
like, I think when I try to like think of what it could be, I think that comes from just a desire, like the desire to live, I guess. It's just I want to be alive and exist. I don't really know where else to go with that.
Okay,
And
so
like,
does that influence the way that you live?
yes,
Does that influence the way that you treat people?
I I would say yes.
How so?
You want to leave an impression on other people. Well, I want to leave an impression on them. So when I speak to
Okay.
them, we have memorable conversations so that, past the point that I'm in their life, whether it's because we just stopped talking or I die or whatever, that they still can not only remember and think about me, but possibly even, spread those shared experiences with other people, and they'll share those experiences with other people, and it
Mm-hmm.
just leaves a lasting impression on humanity.
The way that you talk about things reminds me of sort of like a warrior ethos, like this concept of, uh, ancient warriors that go into battle and they want to, you know, find glory and be remembered for, all times for their glory on the battlefield kind of thing. Um, but that kind of mentality obviously led them to do some pretty horrendous things to other people. You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
would you say that obviously you don't seem to operate in that fashion? You seem to have a level of compassion for other human beings. Um, do you feel like that compassion is born out of that desire to live forever, glory, be remembered?
No,
Okay.
I feel like the actions of like going a step beyond compassion to be remembered is coming from like the longevity, but the compassion itself is, at least I think it to be, based on like human nature to just be a social creature that doesn't, it's just the spreading of happiness, I would say.
Okay.
like I talk to
And the
people
spreading
in a
of
way that
happiness
would
is
make me happy.
okay. So the spreading of happiness uh, is because it makes you personally happy to spread that happiness, or because that spreading of happiness uh, affects you in a way that allows you to be able to create additional happiness for yourself. And I'm making that distinction because you could have the personal drive to, much like somebody that wants to, who's a sadist who wants to hurt people and that makes them happy. You can also be sort of the kind of person who enjoys making other people happy just because it's an impulse.
I think that that's more so what it is for me.
Okay, gotcha. So, all right. So we have to go a little bit beyond the impulse to be able to determine what exactly is the value that's underneath there. Um, and obviously, I think happiness is probably the thing that we've most frequently come back to. Um, but I'd like your thoughts on it. If you'd like to like talk about it for just a moment, maybe we can maybe absent of me asking continued questions, maybe you can shine a little bit more light on it based on the conversation that we've had.
Like just on happiness in general.
Um, Based on happiness and what it means to be moral.
uh, I think the happiness is a big matter of, like, okay, happiness itself is just the feeling, almost euphoric, I guess is the best way I can think to describe it, that these actions or these circumstances bring me.
Okay.
And like achieving the somewhat constant state of it is a motivation that comes from like the enjoyment of the feeling. It's one of those things where I experienced it. I really liked it. Like it puts, I label like a good stamp on the idea of happiness. So that
Yeah.
is what I pursue.
Sure.
And morality is kind of like the GPS that I'm following in my pursuit of the happiness. It guides me on
Okay.
the road. It keeps me
It's
off of
your
the side
roadmap
streets.
to happiness.
Yeah,
Okay. I like that. Does that roadmap include um, just you, or does that roadmap, in your opinion, apply to everybody else?
I feel like everyone has their own roadmap, so mine is only for me.
Okay. What about when roadmaps collide? And I have a different value set than you, and you have a different value set than me. How do we determine what is the most right?
I feel that is where humans seem to have the potential to really shine the brightest, is coming together with other humans and kind of like discussing and coming up, compromising with new ways to pursue the same happiness. So we have different values, but at the end of the day, we both want to gratify something. We both have a desire.
Gotcha. So you think that you, you said that it doesn't apply to you, but then you just said that it, like, it doesn't apply to everybody, but then you just said that it does. because you said that all
Yeah.
humans have this desire to gratify themselves, and they're working together with other humans in order to maximize that gratification. You you
What I
literally
mean, what I mean, not that like we like okay, say we have our colliding beliefs.
yes,
I wasn't saying like human nature by itself is to, go for the happiness and, follow your own roadmap to the happiness. I was saying personally, like what happens, like how do we determine the best thing, not necessarily by, you know, I'm gonna tell you how to do this, you're gonna tell me how to do this, but more so we discuss and come up with a solution because there's room for all of us.
sure. We do those. We come together, we collaborate, we cooperate, we do all that stuff, but we're doing it for a reason, right? What's that
Yeah.
reason? And I think you already said it, because you said that we are doing it because each person has a roadmap. And at first, you said that that roadmap was morality to happiness, but not realizing that happiness is the goal. So that's the being that being the goal means that that's the first principle that is guiding. It's the north star for all of your actions, essentially pointing you in that direction.
Yeah. Hmm.
Does that make sense?
Yeah. You're making me think though.
That's okay.
Um,
That's important. So I have a roadmap about my own personal life, of course. You have a roadmap about your own personal life. Um, but the point is that both of our roadmaps are leading us to some form of self gratification. And when our roadmaps collide, because we maybe have competing interests or something along those lines, um, we have to make judgments about what is the going to create the most happiness. Period. Uh, Initially for ourselves, and then maybe for others, um, in order to get to that ultimate goal, which is happiness. Because I may decide that it is in my best interest to do something, but that may harm you. But then I may realize that it's probably not in. It's probably I would like to live in a world where people did not harm each other, because that would benefit me. And so I will act in a way, be the change you want to see in the world, sort of thing. I will act in a way that coincides with what would ultimately bring me the most amount of happiness, which is not being shanked, or having somebody steal my property, or So I will not do those things to other people because it maximizes the most amount of happiness for myself in the long run. And you may also have the opinion that it maximizes the most amount of happiness for other people. And I don't know, you seem to hold the idea that it's really just about the impulse for you. Um, but you could also make an argument that other people's happiness plays into your own happiness in some sort of like larger uh, issue of utility, like their happiness is useful to you because you can get things from it. Um,
yeah.
Sorry, I rambled a little bit. I apologize.
Oh no, no, I'm following. I think a big part. Well, I think the thing is, happiness does come in parts. There is a part of happiness that comes from other people's happiness because you know there's in some way some benefit. It could just be I take pleasure in this specific person's smile, or this person's happiness benefits me because as long as they're happy, I get some material thing that I want.
Sure.
There's happiness, I value this person as, good to have in my life. I enjoy it when they're in a good mood. So
Mhm.
their happiness matters. Like it's all the little pieces of happiness that come as a whole. And then like
Yeah.
in the middle, I think the one that holds it all together for each individual person is their own personal happiness.
Sure. So there's levels of happiness
Yeah.
um that sort of build upon each other. Um I would encourage you, because I think this is in line with your own personal understanding morality. I would encourage you to maybe not read John Stuart Mill's Utilitarianism, because it's not very long, but it's definitely like a little bit of a dense read if you're not used to reading philosophical text. Um, but at least maybe do some research on utilitarianism, because I feel like that's probably the most in line with the your understanding of morality.
Okay. I'll give that some research time. I like to spend hours reading stuff anyway for no reason.
Um, yeah, John Stuart Mill's a very interesting person because like his dad was you know basically taught him philosophy from like a very young age. Like he was reading like philosophical stuff and learning languages from like the age of 4 on. So like yeah. Of course, later he did sort of have a breakdown, but like,
I would imagine. I
um, that little bit of pressure when you're a kid and not actually being able to be a kid probably doesn't work
doesn't
out
bode
well
well.
for your own health and well being. But yeah. So happiness, I would say, is if I had to if we had to dig down deep into your uh, base value, it's happiness, right?
Yeah,
Would you disagree with that?
not at all.
Okay. And I think, did you know that beforehand, before coming into this?
No, I don't think I did.
Okay.
I think when we started this, like I knew that I wanted to be happy, but I don't think I had like pinpointed why.
Okay. And I and I also think that you think that on some that happiness is also a gauge for um, morality in general for you.
Yeah, it
Um,
based on the conversation, it seems to be like they kind of go hand in hand together.
yeah,
Like it would be harder, if not impossible, for one to exist without the other.
sure. Um, so yeah, I think since you just found that out, this is the beginning stages of it. Yeah, but without the risk of like spending me going and grabbing utilitarianism off my desk over there and reading from it. That's probably your next step for personal development is probably to read about utilitarianism or
Definitely
general
gotta check that out.
consequentialism, but mostly utilitarianism since when we talked about happiness as your ultimate value. And Keely over here loving to be on camera.
Wholesome, so wholesome.
Um, cool. Well, do you have anything to sort of say before we close up shop here?
Um, no, I'm pretty good here. Feel like we touched a lot of points. I feel kind of like a like SpongeBob when they got like when he got lost in the bottom of that well and he had to like dig until he found the magic. Feel like I'm getting closer there.
Um, very frequently when not at least when I have these types of conversations and someone makes me think, I feel like someone has stretched the boundaries of my brain, and I'm like, okay, I gotta chill for a minute because like
Big brain time.
It is big brain time. Um, Galaxy brain. But definitely thank you, Beast Boy, for coming out here and talking with
Thank
us
you.
about your moral principles. It was a lot of fun. Um, and I'm gonna let you help me name this episode. We can either call it happiness or we can call it utilitarianism.
I think utilitarianism like the
Okay,
go-to there.
cool. We'll do that then. We'll call it utilitarianism. Awesome. Well, thanks very much for watching this, guys. Hope you enjoyed this. If you would like to, if you have anything you would like to say, please leave that in the comments. And if you would like to be a part of this project, you can leave that in the comments or shoot me a message on Twitter at the Anime Trainer, and maybe I'll be able to squeeze you in here. But there's a lot of people signing up for this thing, so we'll see how far I get.
Well, good
And
luck with
until
that, man.
next time, guys, good luck and train hard.
Subscribble.